It's remarkable how a single preseason game can flip an entire NFL franchise on its head, isn't it? For months, the Cleveland Browns' quarterback picture was neatly packaged, a simple, orderly narrative. Deshaun Watson was the unquestioned starter. Veterans like Joe Flacco existed purely for depth. And the rookies? They were there to learn, tote clipboards, and maybe toss a pass or two in garbage time. End of story. If you're here for the real story, the unscripted drama that never makes the highlight reel, hit that subscribe button. And if you're sticking around to watch this Browns QB saga unravel, you're definitely in the right place. Everything was predictable until Shedeur Sanders walked into the stadium for his very first NFL preseason action and torched that polished little script to ashes. Let's get one thing straight. Andrew Berry is thrilled. The Browns GM took plenty of heat for drafting Sanders in the 5th round. Critics called it a PR stunt, scoffing at the pick because of his name. Scouts whispered that Berry had squandered a draft slot on a project quarterback when Cleveland had bigger needs. Even inside team headquarters, the choice wasn't exactly celebrated. From what I've heard, the war room scene on draft day looked more like a tense corporate negotiation than a triumphant moment. Owner Jimmy Haslam didn't help. In his post-draft presser, he practically washed his hands of the decision, making it clear this was Berry's call. Subtext: if it blows up, that's on you. For months, the expectation was that Sanders would be glued to the bottom of the depth chart. 5th-round rookies don't just walk in and take over. The plan was simple. Work with the scout team, learn behind the veterans, and maybe see meaningful snaps in a year or two. Then came the debut. If you didn't know his number, you'd swear he was a 3rd-year starter in mid-season rhythm. Poise? Check. Command of the huddle? Absolutely. Decision-making? Flawless. This wasn't some jittery rookie forcing throws or folding under pressure. Sanders looked like an NFL veteran in full stride. 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a passer rating north of 106.8. Those aren't just solid rookie preseason stats. Those are the kind of numbers that make coaches quietly reshuffle their depth chart and wonder if they've been sleeping on someone. Which brings us to Kevin Stefanski's reaction. If you expected the head coach to gush with praise, wow, Shedeur really impressed us tonight. We're excited about what this means for our QB room. Think again. Stefanski played it ultra cautious, leaning on boilerplate coach speak. He did some good things. There's still a lot to clean up. We'll look at the tape. Translation: I'm not taking the bait. I'm not triggering a quarterback controversy in August. When a coach deliberately avoids overpraising a player, it usually means one of 2 things. Either he truly thinks it was just a nice flash-in-the-pan moment, or he feels heat from upstairs and doesn't want to admit the QB hierarchy might not be as set as he's claimed all offseason. For Berry, though, this is pure vindication. He's the one who gambled on Sanders when safer options were staring him in the face. He's the one who saw more than numbers and hype. He saw a polished throwing motion, sharp defensive reads, a knack for avoiding turnovers, and thought, that's a future pro quarterback. And Berry wasn't just thinking about football. Shedeur has charisma, leadership presence, and a media savvy that most rookies lack. In today's NFL, where branding and marketability rival on-field production, that matters. But now, the tension inside Berea is real. Stefanski's preseason plan revolved around Watson, Flacco, and rookie Dillon Gabriel as the next up options. Sanders was supposed to be marinating in the developmental lane. But when the developmental guy outplays your backups under live lights, the question becomes, are you coaching to win or coaching to stick to the plan? Whispers around the facility suggest some key players are quietly leaning toward the rookie, not out of dislike for Watson or Flacco, but because Sanders' style speaks for itself. He's decisive. He doesn't freeze. He's unafraid to fire into a tight window if the read is right. Most importantly, he protects the football. That last part, coaches will tolerate a lot from a young QB if he's not giving the ball away. In his debut, Sanders looked like he had an internal clock wired perfectly, knowing exactly when to check down, throw it away, or hit his first read in stride. Meanwhile, the fan base split right down the middle. On one side, the don't overreact to preseason crowd. On one side, you've got the calm down, it's just preseason crowd, dismissing it as nothing more than a good night against second stringers and vanilla defensive looks. On the other, you have the ride the hot hand believers, fans convinced the Browns have stumbled onto an uncut diamond and shouldn't waste time keeping it on the shelf. And make no mistake, Andrew Berry is paying attention. He's no fool. He knows that if Cleveland stumbles early in the regular season, the calls for Shedeur will grow deafening. What's fascinating is how quickly the so-called quarterback competition shifted, if you can even call it that anymore. Dillon Gabriel was supposed to be the developmental rookie in the room, but Sanders' football intellect and maturity have already vaulted him up the pecking order. Joe Flacco brings veteran steadiness, sure, but not the jolt Sanders injects. And Watson, despite all his natural talent, is now in the uncomfortable position of having to play well just to keep the whispers away. This is how NFL locker rooms truly change, not in dramatic all-hands meetings, but in quiet, telling moments. A receiver casually says, "Man, I love how Shedeur throws that seam route." An offensive lineman mentions how quickly the kid calls protections. A tight end marvels that he's never seen a rookie read a blitz that fast. Those little endorsements snowball, and before long, the rookie isn't just one of the guys, he's the guy. And here's the kicker. Barry likely saw this coming. Maybe not this quickly, but he drafted Sanders precisely because he believed the kid would force his way into the conversation. Now, with the preseason barely underway, Cleveland suddenly has an unexpected quarterback savior staring them in the face. The real question isn't just will Sanders start, it's can Stefanski set aside the politics, the pride, and the off-season promises, and actually hand the reins to the rookie if he keeps playing like this? Because if he doesn't, if the Browns limp into the regular season with a sputtering offense while Sanders stands idle, you'd better believe Barry's going to hear about it. From the fans, from the media, maybe even from inside the locker room. If that happens, this Shedeur Sanders shocker could end up defining the Browns season, for better or worse. Containment mode. In the weeks following Sanders' preseason breakout, the Browns' front office shifted into what could only be called containment mode. Stefanski clung to his stock answers. He's progressing. He's doing everything we've asked. It's a process. Barry stayed quieter in public, but behind closed doors, he monitored every throw, every practice period, every whisper in the locker room. The veteran quarterbacks were cordial but watchful. Flacco kept his head down, offering occasional nuggets of wisdom when Sanders asked. Watson, professional on the surface, but anyone who's been in enough quarterback rooms could feel the competitive tension. He knew the signs when a challenger was gaining momentum, and that momentum was very real. Each week, Sanders' practice tape grew cleaner. Reads became quicker. Anticipation throws, those rare passes released before the receiver even breaks, started showing up on film consistently. The first real spark. The regular season began as expected. Watson at quarterback 1, Sanders on the sideline. But in week 3, the first crack appeared. On the road against the Titans, Cleveland's offense sputtered. 3 drives, 3 punts. Midway through the second quarter, Watson took a rip shot on a scramble and sat out a series. Enter Sanders. First snap, shotgun, looks off the safety, drops a 22-yard dime to Amari Cooper on an inbreaker. Next play action to Chubb, roll right, flick to Njoku for another 15. In under 2 minutes, he had them in the red zone. The drive stalled at the 12th, but suddenly the lifeless offense was a live wire. The Browns lost by a field goal, but on Monday morning, no one was talking about the loss. They were talking about the rookie who made the field look like it was moving in slow motion for him. Barry's quiet power move. 2 weeks later, Barry tipped his hand. No grand announcement, just a quiet addition to the weekly game plan, a Sanders package. Not gadget plays, but a tailored set of concepts that fit his skill set. Quick game reads, RPOs, deep sideline shots, and rollouts with run threats. The message to the coaching staff was crystal clear. Sanders is not here to gather dust. He's here to force every defensive coordinator we face to account for him. The locker room shift. By mid-October, the transformation was obvious. More and more players stayed after practice with Sanders. Receivers running extra red zone routes, linemen fine-tuning protection calls, even defensive backs helping him identify disguised coverages. That kind of cross-unit investment in a rookie isn't just respect, it's belief. The breaking point week 9. Home against the Ravens, division rivalry, playoff stakes. Watson claps along with the celebration, but the cameras catch his eyes. He knows this isn't temporary anymore. Stefanski's dilemma. This is where the head coach's job becomes treacherous. Publicly, he offers the stock answer. We'll evaluate everything this week. Privately, his phone is buzzing. Calls from Andrew Berry, from Jimmy Haslam, even from position coaches whispering, "You can't take the kid out now." Coaches despise switching quarterbacks mid-season unless forced. It's a silent admission their preseason blueprint was flawed. But Sanders' performance against the Ravens wasn't the kind you bury without looking like you're coaching scared. Barry's quiet victory lap. Andrew Berry isn't the type to hop on national TV and crow, "I told you so." He doesn't need to. Every sports talk desk in America is doing it for him. A 5th-round pick is the best quarterback in Cleveland. Analysts are calling it the steal of the decade. Berry simply sits back and lets the tide turn, quietly filing away every Sanders snap like a receipt for the day he needs to defend his roster-building philosophy. The brand boom. As Sanders locks down the starting job, his profile detonates, jersey sales soar, national outlets line up for exclusive interviews, even rival players praise his swagger and composure. Cleveland's marketing team pivots on a dime. Home games now open with Sanders hype videos blasting over pounding bass, the crowd erupting. Pre-game warm-ups become a spectacle as fans pack the rails just to watch him throw. Berry saw this coming. He knew Sanders wasn't just a quarterback, he was a brand accelerator, and now the payoff was visible not just in the standings, but in the balance sheets. The stretch run. By December, the Browns are firmly in the playoff hunt. Sanders has gone 5-1 as a starter, with only one multi-turnover game, and that was still a road win against a top 5 defense. His deep ball, deadly. His third down efficiency, among the league's elite. Most impressive, his ice-cold composure in 2-minute drills, already the stuff of early legend. Week 15 versus Pittsburgh proved it. Tied at 17 with 1:28 on the clock, Sanders marched 68 yards in 6 plays to set up the game-winning kick. No panic, no wasted timeouts, no reckless throws. Just surgical precision. The playoff arrival. Cleveland clinches a wild card berth in Week 17. Sanders enters his first postseason carrying rare rookie momentum. The national storyline shifts again. No longer Berry versus Stefanski or rookie versus vet, but a single burning question. Can this kid lead the Browns on a playoff run in year 1? Wild card weekend in Buffalo. Freezing wind. Sanders throws for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Browns fall short by 4, but when the dust settles, no one doubts his future. The legacy shift. By season's end, the entire narrative has been rewritten. Berry is no longer the GM who gambled on a risky 5th rounder. He's the architect who unearthed a franchise quarterback hiding in plain sight. Stefanski, whether he admits it or not, owes a chunk of his job security to the moment he handed Sanders the ball. Even Haslam, who once distanced himself from the pick, now proudly claims it as an organizational masterstroke. And Sanders? He's gone from afterthought to face of the franchise in under 12 months. The building in Berea felt different that January. Normally, postseason meetings center on injury reports, roster evaluations, and reloading talk. But this year, every conversation, whether with players, staff, or marketing, kept circling back to the same question. What's the plan with Shedeur? Berry, walking the halls like a man holding the winning lottery ticket, didn't rush to answer publicly. But privately, the tone had shifted. Stefanski was no longer talking about developing Sanders. He was talking about maximizing him. That's an entirely different conversation. The Stefanski-Berry evolution. Remember how guarded Stefanski was after Sanders' debut? Those days were gone. He couldn't sidestep it anymore, not after Sanders had the locker room and half the fan base in his corner. To his credit, Stefanski adapted. He began sitting in on Sanders' film sessions, soliciting his input on route concepts and protections. There's one story from early in the offseason. Stefanski presents a red zone play design. Sanders studies it and says, "I like it, but if the safety rotates pre-snap, the post corner's dead. Can we build in a backside drag as my hot read?" Stefanski not only agreed, he walked out telling his staff, "This kid's got it." The locker room votes. It wasn't formal, but the shift was visible. Amari Cooper catching extra passes with Sanders after practice, David Njoku in the QB room dissecting coverage shells with him. Even Myles Garrett watching him throw in the bubble and muttering to a coach, "If he plays like this, we're never out of a game." Now back to the point. This wasn't even an injury. It was soreness from adjusting to new climate conditions. He'd been through worse at Colorado without missing time. It wasn't his decision to sit out, it was medical staff. And honestly, some of us believe it wasn't just them. It was the higher-ups. Berry, Haslam, sabotage in a suit. Yet Shedeur remained unshaken. No flinching, no stuttering, no missteps. He stood there like a general in a press war, his answers slicing through agendas like a scalpel through static. You could see the unease building behind the fake media smiles, their scripts unraveling in real time as Sanders dismantled every setup with calm logic and steel-eyed clarity. What do you do when your target refuses to react? When your trap gets turned into a TED Talk? You freeze. You blink. You realize the rookie just took over the interview. How important are these joint practice reps to you? Every rep is sacred. Every time I step on that field, I treat it like it's my last. Guys we worked with last week, some of them aren't even here anymore. This is about more than plays, it's about legacy. Mic drop. Every response was a smooth jab with knockout power. No yelling, no ego, just surgical dissection of weak narratives, dripping with subtle shade and wrapped in that signature Sanders chill. They came expecting fireworks. They got a solar eclipse. The lesson? Never confuse polish with passivity. He's not here to be your headline. He's writing his own. While the press conference started tense, it ended with Shedeur sipping metaphorical electrolytes, while the media scrambled to rewrite their angles. Reporters came to humble him. They left humbled. Mics leaned back like they'd just witnessed a clinic. This wasn't improvisation. This was strategy, precision, legacy in motion. "I'm not here to prove people wrong," he said. "I'm here to prove myself right." And just like that, he did. He was unfazed, mentally anchored. All that outside noise, it didn't rattle him. It never does. That kind of chatter doesn't move the needle, not in his headspace. And the cherry on top, he delivered the entire performance with the poise of someone who had somewhere far more elite to be in 5 minutes. This wasn't just confidence. This was orchestrated composure, swagger executed with surgical timing. Shedeur Sanders didn't walk into that press conference. He glided in like it was a runway show for calculated dominance. No mic drop necessary. His aura was the mic, and you could practically see the synapses misfiring in the minds of the reporters. They tossed curveballs, and Shedeur treated them like slow-pitch charity tosses. Every passive-aggressive jab returned with a smirk that said, "Bless your heart for trying." No panic, no stumble, no hesitation. Just a calm, unwavering tone. The voice of a quarterback who's not only reading defenses, but reading the press box too. This wasn't a press conference. It was an exhibition. A graceful dismantling of lazy narratives dressed up as journalism. Every answer delivered like it came footnoted, with clarity, depth, and a side of truth serum. He wasn't just answering, he was correcting the syllabus. They came armed with bait. He came armed with blueprints and receipts. He didn't raise his voice once, just a well-timed pause, a laser-focused gaze, and that unspoken message, "I know exactly what you're trying to do." And let's not act like this is the first time someone tried to gift wrap a scandal and toss it his way like a birthday surprise. But this time, the grenade didn't explode. It smiled, dropped a quote, and left the room, calmly detonating every assumption the media walked in with. One reporter tried the classic setup. "Where do you feel you've grown the most, on the field or off?" His answer? "Mentally, no question. Doesn't matter whether the media spins things positively or negatively. I'm just not the same as I was in college. I treat people with respect. Even when they hate me for reasons they can't explain, I stay grounded." Boom. They came from mistakes. He gave them maturity. They came for fumbles. He delivered finesse. See, the media thrives on manufacturing narratives, especially when they see a young, articulate quarterback with generational pedigree and undeniable charisma existing without apology. So they show up with leading questions, pre-baked doubt, and the faint hope of cracking his poise for a spicy soundbite. But what they ran into, a chess master at a checkers convention. Some critics say you haven't proven anything yet. How do you respond? Most young athletes trip over that one. Either they overreact or they shrink back and give the company line. Not Shedeur. He offered a smile, polite but lethal, and served up a response so clean it could have passed a white glove test. He didn't just neutralize the narrative.